Hi everyone, this is Matt from ZU Bladeworx. Today I'm going to give you a rundown of the new combat knife we're manufacturing for the Australian Army. We call it the Nomad Mk4. The government and ADF call it the F7 H2HFW. So here you can see the knife itself. And this is actually a knife that will be issued, so it's exactly what the soldiers will receive. Now, the only difference between this knife and the retail version of the knife itself is the code on the back, ZU1-101. The reason for that is that's not a NATO call sign or anything like that. That's a NATO part number linked to our NATO cage code. When we first started manufacturing these, we've been making it for about 3 years now, the knife had not been codified at the time. So codifying is when you get an NSN number. So in order to for the Commonwealth to be able to identify this as one of the knives that they've purchased, they asked us to engrave that on the back. You will see a few in the market that have this defaced, and that's simply because they were overruns or blams or something like that, and we've deliberately damaged that part of the knife so it wouldn't be confused with a Commonwealth purchased item. So then following that, all the knives have a machined hard case. Now the hard case is made from a material called acetyl, which is a high tensile polymer. It's machined out. We'll go into detail of that, of how that's made in a little bit. And then following that, it has a nylon cover. And this particular one is in AMCU for an issued knife. AMCU is a restricted material and pattern. It's owned by the ADF, so you need permission to be able to use the proper one. It's purchased from Bruck Textiles. Every metre of it's accounted for, and so that's what's been used for the Army issue one. The retail version of this is different. It gets the MCU version, which is a general over-the-counter material. So if we get into the construction of how these are actually made, these are made by a method called billet machining. So what that is we get a thick block of steel, machine everything off, and then you're left with a knife. Anyone who's into cars and high-performance cars will be familiar with that. It's how they make billet machine crankshafts and certain engine internals, where they again make the piece from a single block of steel. Now, if I show you this part over here, when we get the steel, it comes in, as I said, 14 mil thick with up to 16 mil, and then we water jet a piece out to that shape. Then we put that into the machine, and Op1 will remove all the material to make that pattern there, which is the first half of the knife. Then we put it into the fixture and machine off the other side. So our machining partner is G-Code, which is, we're based at Kalanga in North Brisbane. Pete, who owns G-Code, is based just down the road at Launton. So they're very much a partner business with us. We do all our work together. Now if we get onto the sheath construction, this is fully machined from a plate of acetyl, which is 16 mil thick. And all the pieces have all the internals machined. You can see some tooling marks on there, including a ball detent. All the holes are tapped for screws, so you can like undo it and pull it apart and clean it out. Put the Velcro on the back, and the Velcro fits inside, and there's like the reverse side of the Velcro on there where it sticks to. Now to get this out of the case, you can just simply slide a trainer or a ruler or whatever down and put it in between the two sides of the Velcro, and it'll slide straight out. So when these blocks come from water jetting, they weigh about 750 grams. This one here is now down to just over close to 350 grams, and the final one is just over 150 grams. So you can see that a massive amount of material is removed to get the final product. We have the trainer here as well, manufactured in exactly the same way, except it's mild steel. Now if we go into the steel that we use Uddeholm Rigger, which is Swedish-made A2 tool steel. It's a good quality tool steel. And the reason for that is when we first started manufacturing years ago, blade steel was not commonly available in Australia in thin sheets. Generally, when you get a knife, as you know, you'd get a blade which is between sort of 4 and 6.5 mil thick. People will machine it or grind it, whatever, to get the knife out of it. then stick on some scales, and your knife is complete. Because we couldn't get access at the time to that type of blade steel, we spoke to the merchants of steel who bring in all the steel from overseas, and their target market was always big industrial companies making cheaper blades, guillotines, that type of thing. So they didn't stock 6mm thick steel. What they do is they bring in a cube of tool steel from Sweden or Austria, and that block could weigh several thousand kilos. They then take the block and slice off pieces, and the thinnest slice they could get at the time was about, which still to today, is about 14 to 16mm thick. So we were purchasing that plate steel, and then we were making our designs to suit the steel. Whereas generally you make a knife and then you buy the steel. We had to match the design to the steel that we could get instead of the other way around. And so we created our own sort of niche little market. It's going to be up to personal taste whether you like this style of knife or not. We've obviously got a solid client base who support us and like this type of steel. One thing we can say is that it's extremely strong. We heat treat these all in-house as well. And so you have a very durable knife. Now we'll go into the processes. So once we receive this machined from Pete, they look like this. So that's a finished machined piece. We then heat treat it in-house. We harden them to about 61 to 63 Rockwell. That's the initial harden, and then they get tempered for 2 times 2 hours, and it comes down to about 58 to 60 Rockwell. After that, they go to our friend Bluey up north, a few kilometres north of Caboolture. He has protective ceramic coatings, and he cerakotes them for us. Then they come back to us, and we sharpen them. So we sharpen every one of these individually on grinders built by another mate, Adam, from ARJ. So I've got 3 of his grinders here, and I sharpen all these. So if we go back to the actual product selection, one thing, the purpose of this video is also to answer some questions that I see on forums and that type of thing. And a lot of people have questioned the knife choice. Why would a soldier need this instead of a bayonet? Well, the reason behind that is because years ago, Paul Cale implemented the combatives program into the Australian Army, which was further supported and developed by Aaron Johnson. They use these knives as a clearing knife. Now, I'm not a soldier, I've never been in the army, we just made knives. But the purpose, we've been told, is that they wear this on their vest, and it's for confined space. If they can't access their gun, they can pull this out. There's a ring on the end so it doesn't, they can hold on to it, and then they can poke the enemy, and then hopefully clear some distance to be able to draw their weapon. So the initial contract was very specific. It was available to the public, I think it was back in 2019, and it had a full list of requirements of what they were looking for. So as a manufacturer, we don't tell them what they're getting, they tell us what they want. They specifically said they wanted a ring knife, robust, double-edged blade of about 4 inches long. So that's what we manufactured. And I don't have the details of who else submitted designs for that, but it was open for anyone in the world to basically submit whatever they felt was going to be suitable. Our first knife that we did submit was this version here, and this was taken to wherever the decisions are made in Canberra in consultation with Army combatives trainers and different people like that, and this was the successful knife. Now, once this was successful, CASG and Army came and said, we like this, but we'd like a few changes. The changes were basically to add the handguard on, and also to put this flat bit at the end, which you can put your thumb on. Some people think that your hand can slide easily on this. It could, probably on this one a little bit. But if you've got your finger in the ring, it's probably going to be not that easy to slide on there. But this little handguard just adds like a little bit of a bump, and I guess if you're in the dark, you can feel that, oh, I'm getting kind of close to the knife without looking at it, knife edge. So as to the actual selection, a lot of people have said, why is there's no utility? Well, that's actually wrong anyway, because I use one of these in the shop to cut every day to cut boxes and everything like that. So if you're talking about utilities of being able to cut stuff, well, it cuts stuff. So it's fine for me, but everybody's different. As for other, designs and that type of thing, and why should they have not used something that was more like a bayonet, where it had like a hunting style knife? Well, we can pretty much make anything. We've been operating officially as a company for 10 years, and we've been made over 70 different designs. So we have things like this, which has obviously got good utility value. Then we have things like this from Ray Fluoro, which probably be my pick. Again, I haven't been in the army, but if I was ever had to go to something like that, I'd probably take something like this with 3 edges on it. Again, billet machine, as you can see, it's quite thick. Or you could take something like this. So the point of that story is that, if they want it, we can make it. It's a matter of me just doing up the CAD, and if it's using our processes that we already use, which is billet machining, then yeah, we can do it. If we talk about the versions that are available to the public, so you'll see on our website we've got a discontinued version, which was a collector edition. We basically just made that for friends, and it's got the packaging and everything like that, and it's got a hard case, and it's a limited edition of 250 pieces that won't be made again. Some criticism we've seen on the internet has been about the sheath being a bit bulky. Now, originally we made this knife for 1 RAR back in 2016, and these all came with Kydex, and they wore it under a shingle. This obviously can't fit under a shingle. So what the purpose of this, and keep in mind this has been decided by combatives trained from the Army, is they wear this on the side of the shingle, and then they can draw from there. That's what they chose, and so that's what we made. For the retail, the version going forward will be a basic version. Now the only difference, as I mentioned, was the code on the back. So this one here, as you can see, has Nomad Mk4 written on it. You see a little bit better on the heat treating. This one here has just been cleaned up a little bit, so you can see the Nomad 4 on the back. That's the post-op that we do after machining, and then we heat treat after that. So just reduce some of the tooling marks. And this is a Kydex that will be coming with it. So this one comes with all the attachments, the back plate and everything like that. But if you're a soldier wanting an aftermarket, we'll be having them available next year. They won't be that expensive. And you can take all this stuff off or not buy it in the first place, and that'll fit into behind a shingle with no problem. As you can see. And it's got perfect retention as well. So yeah, those knives, the general release is 450 Australian. So remember, all our prices are in Australian, so that works out to be about 280 US, around that price. And that's where our knives are priced at. We spend a lot of time, and it costs a lot to make these knives. So we try and charge as reasonably as we can. And so that's basically the story of the knife. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments. Happy to answer. But at the end of the day, this is a 100% Australian-made product, utilising the services of 4 businesses, including my own. So I'll give a mention to all of those. I mentioned Pete from G-Code before, Bluey from Protective Ceramic, who does our Cerakoting, and also the nylons are made by Stuart from Krieger Industries. Stuart's a 3 RAR veteran as well, so it's always good to return some work back to the veteran community if possible. So yeah, that's everything. So thanks for watching.